You're listening to the Basketball Lab podcast with your hosts Mark Shannon, Mark Clarke, and Marco Corona. They'll discuss all the top news and stories from around the basketball world while giving their opinion and insight. Now, here are your hosts.
Welcome back to another episode of the Basketball Lab podcast. I'm your host, Mark Shannon, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mark Clarke and Marco Corona. You know, boys, just before we get into any basketball talk, I want to talk a little bit of, it's Bell Let's Talk Day today in Canada here. So I want to talk a little bit about mental health. Today is Bell Let's Talk Day. People throughout Canada and the world make their voices heard and have an open conversation about mental health, right? Mental health is just as important as any other illness or health concern that's out there. It may not affect everyone, but it's serious, and there are people struggling daily. And it's okay to not be okay. You're never alone. You are loved, and you do matter. If you or anyone is struggling with mental health issues, there are definitely ways to help them. And we're in the pandemic, COVID, and all this stuff is around. So mental health is definitely, taking effect of a lot of people right now. So this is a perfect time to reach out to your loved one, see how they are, check in on them, give them any help they need.
Yeah, for sure. Remember, just a simple "How are you doing?" goes a long way. And just checking on people, especially now in a pandemic where we're kind of isolated. We've been in the house for a long time. A little bit does a lot.
I agree. And it's been a rough go, obviously, for a lot of us. Different, everybody's got a different circumstance, and you never know what people are going through, right? Sometimes people suppress what really is going on, and you don't know. So if you know somebody that you haven't reached out to in a while, check in. And like you guys said, sometimes a simple hi, how you doing? What do you need? What's going on, right? And right now we can't be around each other, so we got to be there for each other, right? So thank you for bringing that up, because I think it's extremely important, especially over the last 10 to 11 months. It's been rough.
Yeah. No,
and just quickly, if someone's been reaching out and checking up on you and doing all this stuff, check up on them at some point.
Yeah.
Because the person who is always checking up on you definitely needs to be checked up on sometimes too.
Well said. Absolutely. Amen to that.
And we talk about basketball and sometimes that's that's on our mind, and it takes our mind away from all that stuff. So this is a perfect time to talk about this, because we spend a lot of time talking about basketball between the three of us, and it takes our mind off anything that's going on in the world for this hour long that we discuss it. So maybe we should just get into this basketball now. One topic that has come up over the last few days, Mr. Bradley Beal. He put up 47 points last night. And the Wizards still lost.
Yeah.
They've got 3 wins this season, and Bradley Beal has played outstanding this season, if not MVP type stuff, if Washington were a better team. They traded for Russell Westbrook, hopefully to try and spark some sort of connection there, but it hasn't worked out. So I don't know. What do you guys think of Bradley Beal so far? The Wizards, whatever it is, what do you think so far?
Man, it's funny, right? I and Clarke, I think that you might remember this a few years back when the Raptors were battling the Wizards in the playoffs, right? Yeah, I was the number one Bradley Beal basher.
100%.
I could not stand this guy. I thought he was brash. I thought he talked he just came across smug, but I always recognized that the talent was there, right? So fast forward to now this year, where the Washington Wizards are not who they were a few years ago. He is the brightest star perhaps in the league as of today, right? A couple of weeks ago, we talked about who's the best center in the league, et cetera, et cetera. He might be playing the best basketball of everybody in the league right now.
Yeah.
Potentially. And actually, yes, the worst team in the league with Russell Westbrook on his team. And he came out and said that this is where he wants to be, right? Just after that or before that, he said that, what did they ask him? Are you frustrated? And he said, what is it? Is the sky blue, right? But my guy's dropping 34, 35 a game steady, right? He's basically doing all the heavy lifting. And it must be so frustrating for this guy to just basically go at 100 miles an hour, give it all to try to get wins, and it's not happening, which is sort of ironic because we saw the complete opposite in Houston, where a guy wanted to orchestrate his way out, and he did. And he basically just Cadillaced it all the way until he got his trade. Whereas you have Bradley Beal, who's playing his ass off. He hasn't officially asked for a trade. I don't know if he will be, and I know we'll get into that, but I got to give my, tip of the cap to that guy, man. He's playing his ass off. And if there's anybody who deserves to ask for a trade right now, it's him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's crazy because, again, Bradley Beal, it's not the situation that we were expecting of the Wizards, and they're literally they're at the bottom of the tally right now. They're the 30th team in the league when it comes to games win. And this guy's been balling. I was just looking at his stats. He's scoring 35 points per night. The last 4 games, he's scored over 160 something points. 140 points in the last 4 games. Like that's just crazy. And they're literally not winning anything. Plus, he's playing heavy minutes too. I was just looking at his minutes. He's playing 40 minutes, 38 minutes, 35 minutes. He's playing really heavy minutes. But the one person that they brought in to kind of help out their situation isn't pulling his weight. And I think Bradley right now,
your boy.
At this point, Bradley Beal wants a refund on him, or he wants.
Looks like Bradley Beal got tricked.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the whole Washington got tricked. Like, the entire district of Columbia got tricked.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, it's crazy. And again, and I think I've mentioned this in a past podcast. James Harden and whatever team, sorry, not James Harden. Wow, I don't know where that came from.
Get him out of your Westbrook
mind, and whatever team he's on, they're not gonna be a great team. They're not gonna be a contender. One, the main reason, because Westbrook game style. He needs to change his game, or maybe he's just washed at this point. I don't know what it is.
Oof! Put a pin on that one.
I mean, it's crazy, man.
Yeah, I mean. Bradley Beal, we've seen what he was able to do last year. He took a step forward last year, and surprisingly, I mean, I didn't think he would be able to take as much of a step forward as he has this year due to the fact that they did pick up Russell Westbrook, and I mean we know what Russell Westbrook comes with, and he controls the ball a lot. He has the ball in his hands a lot, but Bradley Beal is averaging 35 points a game, almost 49% from the field. 36% from 3-point range, and he's also averaging almost 35 minutes a game. But he's not getting any help. I mean, you can't win games if you're not getting help. Like, you can't. It's impossible to win games if you're not getting any help. And whether Westbrook's playing well or not, the rest of the team is nowhere to be found. Davis Bertans was hurt. Avdia hasn't really stepped up.
Not worked out yet.
Right, he hasn't worked out yet. Hachimura's looked all right, but they haven't. And defensively, let's not put anything past us. Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook aren't 2 of the best defenders in the NBA. You know what I mean? So when you're the 28th ranked defense in terms of defensive efficiency, you're not going to win games, and it showed. They've won 3 games this season. So I mean, Bradley Beal is just he's playing at an MVP level. It's just unfortunate the rest of his team isn't playing at a NBA level. They're just getting beat and they're not competing. And the only one that is competing is Bradley Beal. And I wouldn't be surprised if he does try and force his way out eventually. But
I mean, you can see the frustration slowly coming out of him.
Oh, absolutely. I think we all seen the picture of him yesterday on the bench, sitting there, just put his arms over the back seats of the chair. Obviously, if anybody is given anything to Washington as much as him and John Wall have, I mean, those two have given everything to that franchise since they've come into the NBA. You know, they didn't bat an eye, they didn't complain, they went out there, did their job. And now, yeah, you saw the little bit of a complaint with John Wall or whatever, but Bradley Beal still doesn't say anything. He still doesn't come out and into the media and bash his teammates or say anything. Yes, he's frustrated. We could tell that. But will he end up staying in Washington? I don't know. That's a big thing. That's a big question. I think that's probably where I was going to go with my next thing. Like, I don't know. Do you guys think at the end of that day, do you see him being with the Washington Wizards starting next season? I don't know if Washington will trade him this year. They might, but do you see them lasting past this year with Washington?
Okay, so maybe before I end my rant here,
yeah.
maybe just check on the contract thing, because I think he's got 2 years or 3 years left, right? So we'll go back to that in 1 second. I think I'm going to answer your question with a question myself, is what exactly is the plan for the Wizards? You brought in Westbrook to team up with Bradley Beal. You flipped John Wall because, and let's face it, let's not kid ourselves, most of us thought that John Wall was a wrap, and whatever you got John Wall out of John Wall was basically scraps, and it's worked out for Houston, so good for them on that. But what is the game plan for the Washington Wizards? Because if this is their plan, this is the worst rebuild process I've seen in a long time. Classic Washington, right? So if I'm Washington, I don't wait for Bradley Beal to ask for a trade. I start exploring trades right now and try to get whatever I can, and at least you have to at least make calls, man. And because this is not working out, funny enough, I think they might get stuck with Russell Westbrook, which really sucks, right?
Yeah.
But you obviously, at this point, you're not going to move Russell Westbrook unless you eat some of his contract. So you got to move your biggest asset. The rebuilding process in Washington is not worked out. And the only way you properly rebuild is basically just strip it. What you always say, put the bare covers, right? Like, to me is, so to answer now your question, do I think he's going to be a Washington Wizard? I think you have to keep your eye on the West and see what happens. I think it all depends on injuries and other trades in between. I mean, there's obvious contenders, but there's obviously teams that, they have to look up for their cap situation and luxury tax and all that good stuff. But I think it really depends what happens in the Western Conference. I don't think there's a team in the East that right now is in the game, although there's one team that we probably all three of us would wish that would make the call, but that's for another, maybe a little bit later on. But I don't know. I really don't know. I think it really depends what happens with certain teams in the Western Conference. I do think that the Washington Wizards should do whatever they can to move him now, because the Washington Wizards are going to start to become the Houston Texans of basketball. They're going to screw everything up. Yeah. They have a legit star. And before he goes sour, I would just move him and then deal with Russell Westbrook at a later date and figure it out. Because the way this team is constructed right now, guys, it's not even right. It wasn't right from the get-go, right? Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen there, but I think that they should look at moving him as soon as possible.
Yeah, I agree. I was thinking that if they don't move him as soon as possible, he's just going to become a dead weight like James Harden. But if I were a betting guy, I would put money that he won't be with the Wizards. Maybe by trade next deadline? Season. Next season.
So he finishes the season in Washington.
Probably, and it's not that likely. I would say it's probably right now probably a 60-40 that he finishes. 40-60 that he finishes with Washington. I can see him again. Maybe even trying to force a trade or something.
I don't see it. I think that he's doing all the right things. He's saying all the right things, right? He's being a team guy. He's not. And again, going back to my wrestling thing, he's not a heel, right? He's a baby face right now. So I think it's really up to the Wizards to see what they can get for him if they really want to explore the trade market. Yeah. And I'm telling you, for the right move, they can get a haul for this guy.
Yeah,
like
for sure. Especially with how he's playing right now.
Oh Lord, Jesus! Like you can get whatever you want back, man. If you just play it right, which means that they're going to screw it up and not do anything right.
Yeah, I think they just need to move him, blow it up, and rebuild.
Masai, call Washington.
I mean,
it's funny how times change, eh? You'd never say that last year or any time before.
4 years ago or 3 years ago,
No.
whatever it was, I would have left this podcast right now and said, "You're crazy. I don't want to be within 5 feet of Bradley Beal." Not even.
Yeah.
I've matured, guys. What can I say?
I like it.
I mean, is it as much of a pipe dream as we think that he wouldn't be traded to Toronto in terms of wishful thinking, I guess? I mean, at the end of the day, the Raptors have the cap space.
Yep.
They have an open spot at the shooting guard position, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They do have some prospects that they could send back that way in terms of, I mean, you'd obviously have to give up somebody from that starting five, whether it's VanVleet, OG.
No. See, I'm going to stop you right there. I don't think they give up on VanVleet.
No, I'm just saying, I'm saying, like, if I'm Washington, those are the guys that I'm asking for.
Gotcha.
I'm saying that they're going to have to give up at least one of those guys, whether it's VanVleet, OG, or a Powell plus something else or whatever. You know what I mean? They're going to have to give a haul.
Obviously, anyone that's talking to Toronto about a trade, they're going the first person they're going to include is VanVleet, or try to get it.
Well, I could see that, but I could see a lot of teams asking for OG as the the main piece of that pie.
That contract is sweet if you really think about it.
And he's growing as a player.
Yeah, he's matured,
He's obviously still green. He's still got a long way to go in terms of getting to that level. But he's arguably a top 20 defender and top 20, top 15 defender at least in the NBA right now. He's one of the best defenders that I see out there, and he gives his heart every time he's on the floor defending. Sometimes he makes mistakes, but I mean, everybody makes mistakes out there. But at the end of the day, you're asking for, if you're Washington, you're not going to ask for somebody who you think, who you're going to get cash strapped for. If you could build around an OG Anunoby or put him in there, and build around your guys. But then again, you look at their roster. They have Avdia, they have Hachimura, they have a bunch of guys that fill that position. They're just not as good as OG. But if any, like, that's one team that I'd be surprised doesn't go after him. Another team that I wouldn't be surprised that goes after him would be Cleveland. In terms of talent-wise, like in terms of prospects that they have on their roster. You got Darius Garland. Yeah. Colin Sexton's there.
I was just gonna say, imagine Beal with Garland and Sexton.
But that's what I mean. But if I'm Washington, there's no way I'm not taking one of those two off your hands. I'm taking. I think Darius Garland's obviously the guy that they could pry away. I think Colin Sexton's gonna turn into a bona fide all-star. So I don't think they're gonna be willing to move him. But Chetty Osman's there. There's a bunch of talent there on that roster. That's another team that I could see as a dark horse. I'm not saying that's where it's going to happen, but they have the cap.
No, that's what you said. That's what I understood. No, you said it's going to Cleveland.
No,
you already said it.
No. I said it was. I said they were a dark
putting
horse.
it on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. It's done.
It's already out on the internet.
No.
CP24.
You can't hold me to that. I'm just going to blame Doc Rivers or something. I didn't say that.
No, chill, man.
I'm just stealing a play out of Paul George's playbook. That's it. Blame somebody else. That's it.
Oh, all right.
Right? No, I'm just saying in terms of I think that could be a good fit. Will you want to go there? Obviously not, because I mean they don't really. They're just as bad as Washington right now.
Can you imagine how shitty your life is if you go from Washington to Cleveland?
Man, I mean, but then again, Cleveland has a better upside than
I know, but
right
dude,
now.
come on,
I agree with you 1,000%. Like, I mean,
that's not nice.
There's better teams for him to go to. I mean,
yeah.
we mentioned it a little bit earlier before we were on here about the other W team, the Warriors.
I knew that was a setup,
right? But I mean, again, that's another team that I mean. Obviously, I don't think that's the case because you got to remember that what's his name is still there. Klay Thompson's still there. He ain't gonna go. You can't have Steph, Beal, Klay, and Draymond plus Wiseman. All these guys, right? All these guys on your team. You're gonna obviously have to trade Oubre, Wiggins.
Oubre back to Washington,
right? Yeah,
come on,
that would have been funny.
That's just mean. That's just mean.
You know what? At the end of the day, there's rumors already about Oubre being traded. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case, but I mean, there's talent there. Wiggins going to Washington. There's a lot of talent on Golden State that could be moved towards that, but
I could see them trading Wiggins and Oubre for Beal.
yeah,
for sure.
I just don't see any other team that would be able to possibly fit his contract in with the pieces. I mean, there is Boston, but I mean, at the end of the day, if you're Boston, you're gonna have to give up Jaylen Brown, right?
No.
And I don't think
I'll tell you why Boston wouldn't do it, because they're too arrogant, and Washington's gonna ask for picks.
Yeah,
and Boston holds on to picks. They're the opposite of OKC, bro. Like OKC gets picks, right? Boston gets them, but they're not going to trade them away. Like OKC, I know for a fact, and maybe not for a fact, that they're going to use those picks as assets. Boston's holding on to picks for whatever reason, and I have no idea what they're going to do with them.
Man, I could just sit here and list off all the teams I think he could go to. Another team that just came to mind, OKC.
Cool.
See, I like that.
Right?
Yeah.
It just coming to my mind. You got to look at.
They got picks.
They got the
picks.
The draft pick capital.
Yep.
You know what I mean? They could give up four first rounders for them, 5 first.
And they still have like 10 left.
And they still have about 15, whatever. You know what I mean?
They
still have
definitely
the next 6
could
drafts.
build a team around him for sure.
Well, I mean, and you look at it. You have Beal. You have Shai. Right? That's 2 star talents are going to be star talents, at least on your roster. You've already built
names,
2 out of your 3 players, and they have a decent team. I mean, and like you said, they still have the draft pick capital if they were to make the trade. But that was another team that just popped up to mind. And
then they can call Cleveland, offer them picks, and get Drummond.
There you go. See, there you go. Look at that. I didn't even think of that. But I mean,
hey,
at the end of the day,
call me. Give me a call.
I mean, at the end of the day, Drummond, talking about him, I mean, like another thing, he came out this week that a buyout may be in the works or might happen. He wants a buyout to go to Brooklyn. I mean, I don't agree with any of this. I mean, I agree. Yeah, the players get they have some say and the union and all this stuff. But I think the players are getting a little bit too much say. They're abusing the power of being able to do whatever they want. In terms of that, I mean, at the end of the day, you're forcing a buyout. So you get bought out by Cleveland so you can go to Brooklyn and sign on a minimum level deal or a cheaper deal. So Brooklyn gets a steal without having to give up anything. You know what I mean? I don't agree with it. And especially for a guy that's going to be a free agent at the end of the year.
I'm going to let Clarke go on this one first. Go on.
It's called a ring chase, bro. These guys don't, it doesn't really matter. Like, it's like the paycheck doesn't really matter anymore. They just, it's all about chasing the ring, right? So now they have the big 3 in Brooklyn, and that's a hot spot. It was like before when it's like wherever KD goes, it's the hot spot. I mean, it's good that players have control of their game and control over their career, but abusing those powers it's a total different thing. And it's, as you said, it's getting ridiculous. It's really getting out of hand now, because basically a player is just basically fixing the league whatever they want to do to win a ring. And you'll have a team that's so unbalanced. And it's just crazy.
Yeah, I just want to jump in one before Marco goes here. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I think Drummond's earned the right to kind of sort of do what he's want. He's put in a lot of time with a shitty Pistons team that for years he wasn't able to do anything. And now he's on Cleveland, which is an equally a shitty team the last few years. And he's put in his time and he's put in his work and he's, done what he's had to do. So, I mean, I can't fault him for wanting to chase a ring. I just find it's a little bit ridiculous in terms of him being able to sort of buy out or try and force a buyout to go to a team that's already stacked and he gets to sign a minimum level deal. You know what I mean?
I've been working. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're talking about an all-star level talent that has played in the NBA for the last few years and has put up all-star level talent numbers. We're not talking about DeMarcus Cousins, who's been injured, or a guy that's been injured often. We're talking about one of the best rebounders in the game, You know what I mean? So I don't agree with that point of it. And like I said, I'm not knocking Andre Drummond because he's earned every right to do what he's doing, because he's put in his time and he's been loyal to both teams that he's been on for the last since his career started. So
I'll keep this short because I don't want to go on in some sort of Stephen A. Smith rant. But my guy's averaging 18-9, almost 15 rebounds a game, right? He started every single game, almost a block and a half a game. This is a legitimate all-star. Like, if you're talking about all-star numbers right now, 19 points a game, 15 rebounds, right? He's shooting what is he shooting? 58% from 50%, 47% from the field. Like, this is a legitimate starter, and we're talking about a buyout. Like, to me, it's a bit. You talk about the players having a lot of power. It's fine, okay. You can argue that, whatever the case is. The system is flawed. That's the case here. That's what it is. The system is flawed, because you cannot have a guy be bought out who is a legitimate stud or having a stud season, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, we're just gonna buy you out and you can just, go wherever the heck you want, or fix where you want to go so we can buy you out, and then you can end up in Brooklyn. To me, I don't even have a problem with the fact that he's getting to a destination that he wants. I just don't understand why. It's almost like the NBA needs to divide buyouts into tiers. And if you're at a certain level, if you've played a certain number of years, then you cannot get bought out after a certain time, unless it's an actual legitimate trade. Yeah. It's almost like in baseball, like you have to go through waivers, right? Yeah. And then the last team gets the first pick. And I know the system is sort of similar in that case, but to me, it's like, okay, well, I'm in Cleveland. I'm averaging 18 points a game, 15 rebounds a game. The team's not going anywhere. Buy me out so I can end up in Brooklyn. Really?
Yeah.
Really. And Brooklyn's at the cap. They just got the cap exception for Dinwiddie, right? Which is, I think it was like about $6-7 million, whatever the case is. So they have room. So money is not the issue there. But to me, it doesn't make any. For competitive balance, and that's what I'm talking about. For competitive balance, it does not make any sense. And to me, that's where I have the problem.
You know what's the problem? The problem isn't players having control. The problem is loyalty. There's absolutely no loyalty anymore, and no one wants to stay where they are and try to accomplish the ultimate goal to win a championship with the team that they're. I mean, he hasn't been with that team for too long. This, I think, is his second season. Yeah. But I saw a meme the other day, and it says the only 4 loyal players in basketball is Clay, Steph, Laurie, and Dame. And I mean, I would kind of agree with that meme. There's absolutely no loyalty in the league anymore. And this is why.
We just finished talking about, we just finished talking about Bradley Beal, right?
Yeah.
You just mentioned Dame Lillard, right? Yeah. And you mentioned, I believe it was Klay Thompson.
And Steph.
Right? And Steph, right? But if those guys asked for a trade, if those teams were, in the tank or whatever, we wouldn't bat an eye, because we would understand they've put up their time, this and that. But to me, the buyout thing is, to me, it doesn't make any sense. It's not like you're talking about a bottom 5 guy or whatever in the league. He's going to get bought out, and okay, depth guys, right? Like, that's fine. You just go on to, the team that you wish. But to me, this isn't a legitimate all-star guy who's going to get bought out. The optics is just stinks.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, it's not like he's going to go. He's going to go and he's going to go sit on the bench.
Right.
He's going to go. He's going to take over DeAndre Jordan's spot and be the starter on that team. Right. I mean, it's not like he's going to. And that's my thing. And I mean, like I said, I can't knock him, because at the end of the day, Andre Drummond has been one of those loyal players. And he spent his time and he put in the work and he stayed in Detroit, even though they were absolutely atrocious.
Yeah.
And he was.
That alone deserves a.
Exactly. Exactly. And then he was moving to Cleveland or he went to Cleveland, and it's been the exact same thing. I mean, they've been absolutely atrocious, and he's paid his dues and he's played his time there, and I can't knock him for wanting to leave. But ask for trade, ask to be traded away. You know what I mean? Like, you're asking for a buyout, so the team's going to pay you whatever they have to pay you to buy you out. Then you're going to go sign with Brooklyn for whatever it is, like whether it's a veteran minimum,
yeah.
a prorated salary, or whatever it is.
After opting in, by the way.
Exactly. After taking a $34 million opt-in or whatever.
Is that how much it was? 37?
I think it was 34, but I could be wrong. I think it's in the 30s somewhere, but I could be wrong.
Okay, whatever.
But at the end of the day, it's like you're going to a team that's already stacked, that just traded for James Harden. I mean, if that's not, like Mark said, if that's not ring chasing, I don't know what else is. But at the end of the day, he's put in his time. He's never been able to get to chase a ring. So, I mean, hey, if you could do it now before you become a free agent at the end of the year, might as well do it now, right? Because let's be real, if he goes to Brooklyn, they're not going to sign him long term unless he's taking a veteran minimum deal. You know what I mean? So he's going to free agency. He's going to be a rental at the end of the day.
He's a hired gun.
Exactly.
And all that being said, he would be the perfect fit in Brooklyn because they lack that depth now with the trade that they made, and Jordan's not getting any younger, right? So you slide Drummond right into 5 right away as a starter. Their defense is a bit shaky, in my opinion, and we'll probably get into that in another episode. But I mean, to me, at the end of the day, if you take all of what we just set aside and common sense just from a basketball perspective on what Brooklyn needs, in theory, that's actually a perfect fit.
Well, and it's funny because they traded away Jared Allen to Cleveland.
Yeah.
And what was it last week? I think it was last week or the week before we talked about the trade and how Jared Allen might mean that Andre Drummond would be traded, right? Because they traded for a younger, basically Andre Drummond, who might not be as offensively inclined, Jared Allen, but I mean, at the end of the day, Jared Allen is just as good of a rebounder. He's got length. He can block shots. We said that a couple weeks ago about him possibly being moved at the deadline. There's a lot of teams that could use him. I've already mentioned it before. The Raptors could use him. There's a lot of players on that. There's a lot of teams in this league right now that are in need of a big man who could rebound the ball as well as he can. I mean, when you're averaging 15 rebounds a game, it's absolutely ridiculous. And what do you have? I think the other night he had 18 rebounds or something like that. I mean,
and the week before 23.
Yeah, I know. They're like small amounts. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, going on to parity. I know you were talking about parity in terms of the competition in the NBA. I think right now there is a lot of balance in terms of competition between the teams in terms of the parity in the league. I don't know if you guys agree or don't agree. I think that there is a lot of a parity in between the leagues, in between the teams. It's not as big of a gap as it used to be, unless you're the Washington Wizards. But there's not as big of a gap in terms of talent.
Yeah, right now compared to previous seasons, I agree. I think it's to me, I think it's pretty much even right across right now. Again, except for the Wizards, as you said. But I think it has gotten better. At some point, our seasons before, all the competition was in the West. It was like West heavy, like it's just everything's just leaning to the West. But I mean, KD's now in the East, and it kind of does balances out a little bit. I kind of like how it is right now, how the setup is.
Well, you have the top 4 in the West and the top 4 in the East, double-digit wins, and then is everybody else. But between the top 4 in the East and the 8, 9, 10, 11, you're looking at separation of about no more than 5 games and change, right? So that's your gap. And then in the West, it's pretty much the same thing. And I think between 12 and 8, it's only separated by actually about a game and a half.
Game and a half.
Right. So it's, I don't know if it has to do also a lot with the different type of season, the shorter, the early start, the shorter season, injuries, COVID, schedule changes, postponements, et cetera, et cetera. So right now, everything is on balance. Well, however, what that does is, to your point, it creates a little bit of random parity, right? Because right now, teams are still trying to find themselves. If you really think about it, I know that I said the top 4 in the East and top 4 in the West, but if you really think about it, there's 2 teams in the West, maybe 3 actually. The 2 LA teams and the Utah Jazz, who are hot as hell right now. And in the East, In my opinion, and they haven't hit the stride yet. It's the Brooklyn Nets and then everybody else. I'm not sold on Philadelphia yet because their schedule, I know they beat LA last night? But they really haven't beaten anybody. Which, by the way, that was a knock on the Raptors last year, and people were all over them. But I like how everybody else is now on Philadelphia and not giving them that, disrespect that they were giving the Raptors last year. Because the Raptors, in all honesty, the Raptors struggled against teams over 500 last year.
Yeah.
Yes.
At a certain point. And everybody was like, yeah, but they have a good record, but they haven't beaten anybody over 500. Yet the Philadelphia 76ers really have beaten, 3 teams over 500? And everybody says they're finals contenders. It doesn't make any sense. But nonetheless, that's my Canadian rant. So to me, there's still a lot of games to be played. Parity, I think, is actually good, especially now with the play-in play. No pun intended there. So we'll see what happens. There's a lot of games left still, boys, and
still early times.
You're one hot streak away from being 3 games under 500 to being right in that 6th or 5th spot in either league. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, the Western Conference has always been tough. It's always been one of the toughest in sports. I mean, in all of sports. You talk about looking at it 1 to 11. I mean, I think they're 500 right now, or 1 to 10. They're 500 or above, and then you got all the way down to 14. I think the Pelicans are 6 and 10. I think. Yeah. If I'm incorrect, but I think they're 6.
That is correct. Yep.
So they're only 4 games under 500, and we're talking about the 14th seed in the West. And then the East, Miami's 6 and 11. I think that's what they are right now, and they're 13th or something like that.
Correct.
At the end of the day, you're seeing a little bit more balance in the conferences. I mean, at the end of the day, the Eastern Conference still has playoff teams that are under 500. But it's early. Like you said, there's COVID. There's game suspensions. People are sitting out. Injuries, back-to-backs. People are being sat, stuff like that. You know what I mean? So I see that.
It's a bit of a weird season.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Start. Absolutely.
But we anticipated this, right? And this is what we said in probably our first 2 podcasts when we started making the predictions about, our top 8 teams and who's going to get in and out in the playoffs. But it all comes with an asterisk because you don't know what this season's going to bring, right? Between injuries and COVID, my goodness, in a shortened season, anything's possible, right? And listen, the Orlando Magic were in first place after the first 2 weeks. They're now 8 and 11.
Yeah.
Well,
Right?
exactly.
So, I mean, I think the Orlando Magic are, and I don't want to pick on the poor Orlando Magic, but they are where they should be, right? But again, but if the Magic win 3 games here, they're right back in it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But nobody's really out of it right now, except for Washington, because
and Minnesota.
And they're still in the league, okay. But I mean,
come on, man.
You win a few games here and there, it had to come. You're right back in it, man. And again, you got to get into that 8 seed or into that play-in, right? So.
Well, and that's the thing we were talking about a couple weeks ago, where Jokic, or last week, where Jokic was dominating for the Nuggets, and they were struggling. They've won 5 straight now on the season, and they are 11
4th, 11 and 7.
11 and 7. You know what I mean? And then you got Utah. Yeah, they lost Donovan Mitchell last night to a concussion, but I mean they won 10 straight. Who would have thought the Utah Jazz would be the number 1 seed in the Western Conference by a half a game over Los Angeles, the Clippers, the Nuggets? And you know what I mean? And I don't think anybody thought. I think people thought the Utah Jazz would be definitely a top 5 team.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody was expecting them to go on a 10-game winning streak. They're 7-2 at home, 7-2 on the road as well. Like they're not even playing horrible on the road. They've lost 2 games on the road. So
see what Shaq did.
Wow.
Shaq shouldn't have talked about Spider like that, man. That's his fault.
I mean, and then you look at
it on Shaq. Okay.
And then we talked about Philadelphia. Yes, they beat the Lakers last night. I think that nobody can question that. They beat them by 1 point, but they were also up 13?
14. They were up 14 points. Right.
You know what I mean? They're up 14, but they're 10-1 at home. They're
That's
3-5 on the road. So
That's cute.
their away
Typical.
record is not good. When it comes to playoff time, you have to go on the road to win. You
Yeah.
have to win on the road. You can't win at home because you don't play all 7 games at home. You know what I mean? And the 76ers saw that with the Raptors a couple seasons ago. And Embiid, yes, he's having an MVP type season in terms of what he's doing, but at the end of the day, playoffs.
It's all about the playoffs.
It's all about the playoffs, and we've seen what's happened to Embiid in the playoffs with when he's gone into the playoffs. But I mean, we like going back to the parity in terms of it. We all thought Brooklyn would be running away with
Number
this.
one, yeah.
We're running away with this Eastern Conference, but they're sitting in fourth with a 12-8 record. Yeah, they've dealt with a lot of drama, but I mean,
But I think with Brooklyn is a good. The best comparison I can do with Brooklyn is when the Miami Heat and I got together with their big three with Bosh, Wade, and LeBron. It took them a while to get going, right? Because they were trying to find themselves. I think Brooklyn is the exception to the rule in the Eastern Conference. I don't really think that Brooklyn really gives actually a crap about where they finish.
yeah,
What they want to do is they want to stay healthy, they want to get chemistry, and they probably want to improve on their defense. It's the Kawhi approach. They're taking the regular season as a dress rehearsal.
yeah,
Right?
Yeah,
They're going to do all their damage, and this is where they're going to be judged in the playoffs.
yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah, there's going to be some exception to Brooklyn right now because, I mean, they've been dealing with Mr. Dumbass himself, Kyrie.
Wow. Whoa, chill. My God.
and plus, then they have a new piece coming, which is James Harden. I mean, this team is basically a brand new team. They haven't they don't have any chemistry whatsoever. They haven't played with each other. They brought in James Harden. Kyrie was still out there dancing at a party without a mask, and then they brought him back, and so they still really haven't gotten the chance to play together as a team and develop that chemistry. So
you seem upset about this. I'm feeling a little bit tension.
it just rubs me the wrong way, man. It grind my gears. That's all.
That's a whole other
It's
segment.
just a bit annoying. It's just a bit annoying because I mean, he's a grown ass man. He knows right from wrong. We're not gonna go into that, but
I think you're talking.
We just did.
I think you're talking about the little jersey sneak that he gave Bam Adebayo when they told him not to.
First of all,
The game wasn't it the game before that where he went to hug him and the security guard had to like say no, and then the next game
the hug police.
he did the exact same thing and like gave him the jersey. Like, come on, man, just follow the goddamn rules. Like, it's not you're not in elementary school here. Like, follow the goddamn rules. You're an adult.
He did what people's grandmas and grandmothers do. When they give you the old 20 and you don't want your parents to see. There you go, Sonny. And that's exactly what happened.
You gotta fold it up in your hand real tight.
It's like, or what you do in, what you do in the hood, it's like, yeah, what up? But it's not really a what up. It's like, I'm giving you something.
Yeah, it's like
package.
Or it's those birthday gifts, or it's those gifts where people give you the thing and you say, I don't want it. Then they go to the other person and give it to them, but like sneak it to them so they take it.
Yeah.
Man, it's just, I don't understand. Just follow the goddamn rules.
Just FedEx that shit.
Yeah, like literally. Like,
bro.
do the NFL, like what the NFL's do with the clean jersey swap, whatever the hell it is.
Shout out to Peyton Manning.
Peyton Manning with delivering it with the robot. You know what I mean? But I mean, earlier we were talking about All-Stars and Andre Drummond possibly putting up All-Star numbers and stuff. Yesterday, the NBA opened up their All-Star voting or whatever. So I want to get your takes on who you think would be in the Eastern Conference starting 5. But I don't want you to pick people who we know are going to be on the team. Like, we know the fans are going to vote for those top-end players. But I want to see who you actually think deserves to be on that starting 5. And not just players that are like, that just because they're going to be voted in. I want to know who you think is going to be, who deserves to be there.
First of all, it's way too soon to do this, but it's never too soon because we like to do this. We like to speculate and we like to have fun. And just to clarify, again, it's the All-Star game is a popularity contest, right? So the obvious votes are always going to be your LeBron James, even in a bad season, your Russell Westbrooks, right? Your Stephs, your et cetera, et cetera. So to your point is, and I did this today, actually, after you told me that the thing was open. And so I'm going to start, if you guys don't mind.
Yeah.
And the only obvious one that I pick in the East, so I'll start with the East, by the way, first, in guards, was Bradley Beal. Not only because he's been lights out, but my guy deserves it. He's earned the right to be there.
Yes.
Okay. My other guy, and I call me a homer, but that's fine. I don't care. You can IG us or whatever, message us. Freddie Ramsley, he's had a phenomenal season. He has been the captain and you know, the leader of his team outside of Kyle Lowry, obviously. He does everything that you ask a floor general to do, and he's like the understudy of Kyle Lowry. So I think he's earned the right to be there. And by the way, he was named into the pool of the U.S. Olympic team. So just saying, if you can make that pool, then you can make the All-Star team. All right. The front court, I have, believe it or not, I never thought I'd say this, and I might get some heat for this. Gordon Hayward has played really well this year. He deserves to be there. Jeremy Grant, your boy. All right.
Yeah.
And this is a bias. I don't care what anybody says. Sabonis, that's my guy. He's played well. I know he's been injured a little bit, but he's played really well. In the West, I have Zion. I need the kid there. You know what? Say what you want. He's played well. Okay. The obvious one, Dame, but believe it or not, he's probably not going to get voted in as a starter. I guarantee he's not going to get voted in as a starter. He's going to be bitter about it. He's going to write an album about it. I went with Karl Anthony Towns for two reasons. Number one, he's had a great season. I think he's played well. But honestly, after all that he's been through, guys, I'm sorry. This is not pity, but the guy deserves to be there, man. Honestly. Did I say Christian Wood? Did I say your boy Wood? Right? I mean, that's for Shannon.
Yeah,
that's just strictly for him. But he's earned that right. He does.
He's been
their best player.
Yeah.
He's been their best player. And just because I picked Luka Doncic, just because you need a little bit of flavor in there, but that's my choices. It doesn't have to be right, but they're mine, so deal with it.
Yeah. I mean, I have a couple names that I picked out that I would love to see. Like I had Freddie for sure, 100%. Fred deserves to be an all-star. He should have gone last year. He missed out, ended up at Unity, but for sure
That's right. Good point.
Yeah, he should be there this season. As you mentioned, Jeremy Grant. I have OG as one of my picks, as a under the radar pick, and also Chris Boucher. I mean, it's a lot of Raptor out there, but I'm not really looking at team. I'm looking at individual players and how
we're not necessarily talking about starters. Just so everybody's clear, we're just talking about guys who deserve to be there.
Yeah,
exactly.
And how they've been performing. And out in the West, I'll just mention one because you've already mentioned Zion, you've already mentioned Luka, Ja Morant. Yeah, I think he deserves to be there as well.
I thought you were going to go a little Canadian flavor, if you know what I mean, but maybe we'll see what the Shannon has. But okay, no, I like your picks.
But I was thinking that too. But let's see what Shannon has there, and we'll take it from there, I guess.
He's going to pick somebody from his basketball pool, by the way, guaranteed.
100%.
100%.
No. I don't always do that. You know, just most of the time.
99.9.
Right, exactly, 99.9% probably, but you know, it's and I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, there's about two of them on there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, about two, just about two of them. But no, I mean, if we're doing it on who deserves to be there, and like we said, we know these guys aren't gonna actually be on the, you know, they're not gonna be on the starting lineup. We know that.
Yeah.
Because we know the big names like Steph and Clay, Kyrie, and all those guys are going to be
Kawhi.
Those guys are all going to be the starters.
The superstars, the elite,
exactly.
Of the elite. Yeah.
But I have for the East, I have Colin Sexton as the point guard. I mean, at the end of the day, we know Cleveland's doing bad, but Colin Sexton's putting up. His numbers are exceptional right now. He's been able to. He's been one of the reasons why they're in the playoff hunt. and then I have Zach Levine from Chicago. I mean, and that's one of my guys on my fantasy team, so I'll shout that out there in terms of that. But at the end of the day, Zach Levine's been he's been putting up points this season, and he's been one of the lone bright spots on Chicago this season. And we saw him take a huge step forward last year, and this year he's just putting up the same, doing the same thing again. But I have Jeremy Grant as
another guy
that's on my fantasy team for sure. And Marco's not going to like this one, but another guy that I think that deserves to at least give consideration is Julius Randle.
No.
I agree. I agree with that.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I agree because remember, 2 weeks ago, I said that he was playing one of the best. He was my surprise pick as guys who was actually come out and played really well. So, no, you're wrong.
Oh, wow.
I agree with you.
Oh,
I agree with you on that.
I'm surprised.
That's a legit.
100%.
Yeah.
Where would the Knicks be? I can't believe
exactly. Where would the Knicks be without Julius Randle right now?
Yeah,
they'd be where Washington is probably.
Yeah, so
your rightful position. Did I say that out loud? My bad.
At the end of the day, Washington is first if you flip the standings around, right? But
true.
That's not how it works.
First being last.
Yeah, exactly. So my center for the East would be Vucevic. Another guy he's having a decent, good season for Orlando.
Son, Vucevic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Gasol sons out there in the NBA. You know what I mean? And
he's been having a decent season.
Right? And Embiid and Vucevic. You know, there's.
I'm not gonna make a Sean Kemp joke, but go ahead.
Out west. I got De'Aaron Fox as my starting point guard there there. I have Shaq's favorite player, Donovan Mitchell.
Spider.
He's done. I mean, at the end of the day, whether you agree with what he's done or what he's not done, I mean, at the end of the day, Donovan Mitchell is an all-star. He could put up all-star points. He could put up games where 60 points, 40 points, whatever it is. So I got to go with Donovan Mitchell there. I have Brandon Ingram.
Yes.
I think he's done well. I forgot
about him. Yeah.
Yeah. I gotta go with Marco's pick here. I gotta go with Zion Williamson as well. The two Pelicans. I mean, both of them are having good seasons this year.
And I picked him even though he's from Duke, by the way. I just want to make that clear.
And then my last one is my guy, Christian Wood. I got to go with Christian Wood.
Whoa, no Booker.
No, I mean.
It's too obvious.
At the end of the day, not even that. I don't think it's obvious due to the fact that.
Was he there last year?
Yes, he was.
Yes.
No, he wasn't.
But only because someone got injured, no?
Hurt. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's not one of the obvious.
No, but it's not obvious. But I don't think at the end of the day, I love.
100%. He deserves to be one of the guys that goes there.
I love Booker. Don't get me wrong. I love Booker, but Booker isn't playing like Devin Booker.
See the hat?
Yeah, exactly. You see what I mean? But at the end of the day, Booker's not playing the way he's played previously. His games aren't as consistent as they were, where he was putting up 30 points, 25 points, 27 points. His numbers have been up and down so far this season, and maybe that's a little bit of a Chris Paul effect, and bringing him in, and them still gaining that chemistry.
Kardashian curse, bro.
Right?
Kardashian Jenner curse.
Don't start with that. Come on now.
Come on, dude.
Come on. We can't be talking like that.
No.
Dude. But at the end of the day, like I'm saying, I don't think. I think that Devin Booker is talented, but in terms of production-wise this year, he hasn't been as consistent as I would have liked him to be.
That's fair.
Right?
That's fair.
I mean, he's still averaging 20. He's still averaging 23 points a game. But
which is not bad.
He's had a few games where it's been
bubble Booker.
No, he's had a few games where he's been kind of non-existent a little bit in terms of right, or logo book as some people call him. But he hasn't been the same kind of player as he was in that bubble there so far this season. But I mean, it's still early, and he can change it around. But
or he could break up with the person he's seeing. Have a better game.
Are you putting a hex on this guy already?
Come on,
bro. Have you seen?
Come on, man. Yes,
have you seen Odium?
Yeah. Well, yes, we've seen the Kardashian curse. Yes, we know the Kardashian curse, and it's
seen Kanye?
And it's real. It's real. We know it's real.
He needs to get out. No pun intended. No pun intended.
I don't think anybody's seen. I don't think anybody's seen Kanye in a long time.
Not anymore.
Not
since sunken place.
Yeah, exactly. He's in Montana.
I can't make those kind of jokes on this podcast.
No. Let's keep it. Yeah, let's keep it.
We're gonna have to beep that entire thing. That
no, we didn't say anything bad. No.
Tune in for the after hours. The
behind the scenes.
Hours of basketball lab.
The behind the scenes. Yeah. So I mean, talking about All Stars. I mean, just before we end off this podcast. Kobe Bryant, it was just a year to the date that he unfortunately passed away. I see Mark's got the book behind him there. But the legacy that Kobe left on this game, I don't think that'll ever that'll transcend like anything. I mean, at the end of the day, like Kobe was one of those players that had like his book says, a Mamba mentality, had his own mentality of the way he played the game. He played the game like it was, like even keel. He played it with two eyes ahead, locked in, like straightforward. And there was no BS about him. But when he was off the court, he was a different guy. You know what I mean? And when he retired, he was a different guy. And the NBA world lost somebody that, a lot of these players looked up to. We talked about Devin Booker. Devin Booker looked up to him, and LeBron and all these guys looked up to Kobe because of the way he was and the way he played the game and the way he tried to elevate these younger players. So I don't know. I mean, I'll leave it to the floor to you guys. You guys could talk about him a bit if you guys want to.
Go ahead, Clarke.
Yeah, I mean, rest in peace to Kobe, Gigi, and everyone who lost their lives in that crash.
Yeah.
It's already been a year. Wow, time flies.
Crazy,
But
man.
I mean, Kobe himself, this man he's just a legend on and off the court. I mean, let's just forget about his basketball game for a little bit and think about it's just his actions. The smallest things he'll do, like he'll just take a picture with someone random that ask him for a picture in the street, sign something for them. I mean, you'll just listen to him talk whenever he's on any of those night shows or just any kind of atmosphere that he's in, when he's actually talking about where he's coming from, what he's been through, what it took to get him into the NBA. And he's the first person who will say like how trash of a player he was when he was young, when he was a younger guy. But I mean, he's just a great guy overall. I mean, not just the NBA, but the world has lost a legend. He's just a really great guy overall. I mean, there's just no other like him.
Yeah, I'll keep it short, but we want to obviously remember all the families that lost loved ones in that crash, right? And obviously, from a high profile standpoint, Kobe and his daughter. But as you guys know, I'm a huge, shocking Michael Jordan fan, and I've always said this from day one that to me, Kobe was the closest thing that you will ever get from Michael. And at his eulogy, even Michael himself called him like he was his little brother, right?
Yeah.
And the mentality is not just a catchphrase; it was a thing, guys. It was
something he lived.
Something he lived, and he was so cerebral about the way he conducted himself on the court. And yes, he was not perfect, and we understand that, and we get it. And there's other things that whatever, but who has a clean past, right? Like in their life. But as he grew older and as he matured, he became a mentor to a lot of people, right? Regardless of whatever, in the past. And I one of the things that I learned this week is, people remember the good, but sometimes they like to highlight the negative stuff. And that's not what Kobe was about, man. And he would be, if he was here, I'm sure, I've never obviously met him. I wish I did, but he'd be the first one to tell you that, you learn from the past, and then you go on and coach people. And I think that's what he was doing. He was not only he made himself better, but he brought people up.
Yeah.
Right. And you're talking about the not only the impact on the NBA players, guys. Let's not forget the WNBA players. True. A lot of those young ladies who are phenomenal at what they do looked up to Kobe Bryant. Right. And again, to me, it's funny. It's actually not funny. It's super sad that it's been it's been a year now. It seems like yesterday. I was just chilling on my couch and watching TV or whatever the case is, and then the news came through, and it's surreal, right? And it just started to just sink in, and to this day, I will confess that I have not sat down and watched a full either episode or show on anything like that on Kobe, because I can't bring myself to it yet. I will eventually. Yes, I am sensitive that way, but we lost a legend, but never forgotten. That's for sure.
Never.
Yeah, no, and he was a consummate professional in terms of the way he handled himself off the court, and like you said, Marco, the WNBA players really looked up to him. Like Sabrina Ionescu was, a key component of his leadership and what he's been able to do for the WNBA game. And like I said, his legend and his status will transcend lifetimes. You know what I mean? Just because of what he was able to do on the court and off the court. So I think I just had to get that in there before we ended off the podcast.
Absolutely.
Right? Sure. Yeah.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Basketball Lab podcast. Thanks for joining us this week on the Basketball Lab podcast. Make sure to follow us on our social media. You could follow us on Instagram and Twitter at the B-Ball Lab. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Basketball Lab Podcast, and you could also find us on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon Music.